this video lecture, we will discuss about algae. In that, we will see the definition of algae, distribution of algae, general characteristic of algae, classification of algae, nutrition of algae, reproduction in algae, importance and harmful effect of algae. So first, we will start with the introduction. In simple word, algae termed as aquatic plant. Algae is termed as an aquatic plant, or it can also term as the grass of water. The grass of water, because they are mostly found in the water and in a form of grass. As the grass has grown in the garden like this way, in the water the algae has grow as a grass. The study of algae is called phycology. The study of algae, that is known as phycology. By looking at the definition says that algae are the eukaryotic, they are the unicellular or multicellular, they are the simple organism that are photoautotrophic. Photo means with the help of sunlight or the radiant energy. Autotrophic, which means that they prepare their own food. With the help of sunlight or the radiant energy, they prepare their own food. So, they are the photoautotrophic, they are eukaryotic, unicellular or the multicellular simple organism. Distribution, or we can say habitat or the occurrence of algae, whenever the moisture and sunlight are present, whenever algae found the moisture and the sunlight, algae can grow. And they can grow in a soil, they can grow in a water. Some algae they live on the bottom is called benthic algae. Some algae live as a parasite, which means that they live onto the host examples such as in the plant or in the animal. They live as a parasite in the plant or in the animal. Some algae they live as a symbiotic relationship. For example, here there is the lichen. Lichen is in the symbiotic relationship between the algae and the fungi. Okay, here is the general characteristic of algae. Algae may be unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular algae, that is called as diatoms. Unicellular algae, that is diatoms. Diatoms which are in various shape. Algae are eukaryotic microorganism. Some species of algae that contain thick and rigid cell wall due to deposition of silica. Due to the deposition of silica in that cell wall is thick and rigid. Mostly the cell wall of algae that is made up of the cellulose, hemicellulose or pectin. The cell wall of algae that is made up of the cellulose, hemicellulose or pectin. But some species of algae that contain the thick and rigid cell wall due to the deposition of silica. Some algae form the gelatinous layer, which means that they form the gummy or sticky layer wherever they grow. Algae contain eukaryotic nucleus and membrane bound organelles. These are the characteristics of the eukaryotic organisms that contain the membrane bound organelles and the membrane bound nucleus. Here the organelles such as chloroplast. Algae contain chloroplast. Chloroplast contain photosynthetic pigment. That chloroplast that contain the photosynthetic pigment, that's why we says that algae are the photoautotrophic, because they contain photosynthetic pigments such as chlorophyll. And due to this, they prepare their own food with the help of sunlight. If we talk about the classification of algae, algae, according to the 5 kingdom classification, algae is included in a separate kingdom. 5 kingdom classification was given by the R.H. Whittaker, but here the classification we will study that has been given by the F.E. Fritz. F.E. Fritz in the year 1935, and he has mentioned in the book of the structure and reproduction of algae. He classified the algae, F.E. Fritz, that classified the algae into the 11 classes. And how they classify the algae? On the basis of the, mostly on the basis of the pigment. On the basis of the pigment, they classify the algae into the 11 classes. Not only on the basis of pigment, but also from the photosynthetic product, on the basis of thallus structure, on the basis of flagella. Is it the flagella type? Which type of flagella type is present in the algae? And the mode of nutrition, we can say that reproduction. Is it sexual or the asexual? And the basis of the color. What kind of color they have? So, on the basis of all those things, F.E. Fritz that classify the algae into the 11 classes on the basis of pigment, photosynthetic product, thallus structure, flagella type, mode of reproduction, and the basis of the color. Here we will see one by one. The class 1, that is Chlorophyceae. Chlorophyceae, which is the green color, which is mostly the green algae. The example are the Spirogyra, Chlorella. These are the example of the class 1, that is Chlorophyceae. Mostly they have the pigment, that is chlorophyll A and the B, and the cell wall is made up of cellulose. They have the thallus-like structure, unicellular or the filamentous-like structure. The reserve food materials such as starch they carry. Like this way they all have. But here we have to only remember the class and the example. Second one, that is the Xanthophyceae. Xanthophyceae, which is of yellow and green algae. Xanthophyceae, which is yellow and green algae. Whereas Chlorophyceae is a green algae. Example is Microspora. Xanthophyceae example is the Microspora. Here they contain the pigment chlorophyll A and the chlorophyll E, beta carotenoid pigment. The reserve food materials such as oil they contain. Third, that is a Chryophyceae. Chrysophyceae, they are the brown or the orange algae. They are the brown or orange algae. O stand for orange, G stand for green algae, Y stand for yellow and green algae. And the Chrysophyceae that contain they are the brown and orange algae. Example is Dinobryon. Now the fourth class, that is a Basilarophyceae. Basilarophyceae, which is the mostly the diatoms, unicellular diatoms, this comes under this class, that is Basilarophyceae, diatoms. And they are mostly the color of the algae, that is yellow or golden brown in color algae, yellow or golden brown. Whereas the fifth class, that is the Cryptophyceae. Cryptophyceae, which is the brown or red algae. Example is Cryptomonad. Dinophyceae, which is the brown and the red algae. Example is Peridinium. Then the other class, that is the Chloromonadophyceae. Chloromonadophyceae is that which is contain the xanthochlorophll pigment. Then Eugleniaceae, which is contain the chlorophyll pigment, and the example is Euglena. We have to remember all the example of all the class. Then there is the Phaeophyceae, Rhodophyceae and Myxophyceae, and the example of Phaeophyce is the Fucus sargassum. Example of Rhodophyceae, that is a Polysiphonia, and the other, that is the that is a Brachyspermum, and Myxophyceae, that is a Nostoc and Oscillatoria. These are the examples and the classes. The things that we have to remember for the classification, who had given the classification, that is F.E. Fritz, and he classified the algae into the 11 classes, such as we have to remember all the classes and the example of the classes. What are the example that comes under those classes? Example of the algae that come under those respective classes. If we talk about the nutrition of algae, mostly the algae are the phototrophic. They prepare their own food with the help of light. They use CO2 as a source of carbon and the energy. Obviously, they use CO2 as a source of energy, and they use the carbon. The chemoheterotrophic algae make use of organic compound as a sole source of carbon. Chemo means they use some kind of chemical, and heterotrophic, so they use the organic compound as a sole source of the carbon. Like this way, there is the lithoheterotrophic. Litho means they use the inorganic compound as a sole source of carbon. So chemo means they use the organic compound as a sole source of carbon. If we talk about the reproduction in algae, algae reproduce bisexually and asexually. Asexual method of reproductions that include the fragmentation, spore formation, binary fission, that is mostly found in the algae such as diatoms. Asexual reproductions that includes the fragmentation, spore formation, binary fission, that is mostly found in the diatoms. That is, binary fission is mostly that is found in the diatoms. Sexual mode of reproduction, if we talk about the sexual mode of reproduction in the algae, that is mostly found in the higher algae. Higher algae, they reproduce by the fusion of gametes. There is the two gametes and there will be the fusion of gamete. Sexual reproduction by the fusion gamete. Fusion of gamete. If we talk about the importance of algae, algae are the component of the food chain, mostly in the marine life. Marine life like fishes, worms and other sea stars, they depend on the algae. So like this way, they are the main component of the food chain, mostly in the marine life. They used as a food, mostly many food as a jelly items, many other foods like this, algae is used. They are used to prepare the agar-agar powder. Agar-agar powder that is mostly used in the microbiology lab. Agar-agar powder that is mostly used in the microbiology lab, and that is just a solidifying agent. Agar-agar is a solidifying agent. Solidifying agent that just solidified that component or the media. Alginic acid also extracted from the algae. From the algae we extract the alginic acid that is used in the preparation of the drugs. Alginic acid that is used in the preparation of the drugs. And algae can also used as a to prepare the fertilizer, to prepare the biofertilizer we can say. So these are the importance of the algae. They used as a food. They used to prepare the one of the most important, that is agar-agar powder that is extracted from the red algae. Mostly from the red algae it has been extracted, and they used as a solidifying agent in the microbiology lab. Mostly it is used. Alginic acid that is used for the preparation of drugs, and they are also used as a biofertilizer. If we talk about the harmful effect of the fungi, what are the harmful effect of fungi? Algae can cause the eutrophication. Eutrophication is a condition in which there is the excess growth of algae. Excess growth of algae mostly in the water bodies. Suppose this is the pond or some lake. Due to the excess growth of algae, they form a mat-like structure. They will form a like a mat like structure upon the water bodies. Ultimately, when they make the mat like structures, whatever the sunlight they required for the under life, whatever the below the life, that is the marine life, or whatever the life that is present inside the water, they will cause the hindrance to those things. So eutrophication is the condition in which there is the excess growth of algae that has been found. They will form a mat like structure onto the water bodies. And some algae that deplete the oxygen and cause the problem for the fish. Ultimately, whatever the oxygen that is present in the sunlight, whatever the present in the atmosphere, and even the sunlight that are present, that cannot penetrate properly, so ultimately they cause the problem for the fish and other marine life or other life that are present inside that. Okay, if parasitic algae can cause disease in the tea plant and the coffee plants. Some algae are attached to the ship. This is called fouling of ship. Fouling of ship, which means that decrease the speed of ship. Ship, what is the that is used as a transportation in the water bodies. So ultimately they will decrease the speed of the ship. So these are the harmful effect of the algae.